to meet you as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
No, thank you very much. A lot to talk about. So, very much want to... Hi.
So, Mr. Escobar, thank you very much for sharing your time with RTV21 today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, sir. So, how have your recent meetings been? Can you share a bit about takeaways from your meetings in Belgrade and Pristina?
Yes. Well, look, in both countries, in both capitals, I had a range of meetings with not just government leaders, but with opposition leaders and with other significant figures. The one thing that I take away from this is that both sides recognize the importance of tomorrow. That both sides recognize that this potential agreement could unlock a lot of opportunities. So I'm a bit optimistic.
So it's not about convincing them, it's about that they understand this.
It's about finalizing the annex and about moving forward on the implementation.
You trust both of them?
Well, it's not really about trust, it's about legally binding obligations.
Great. So, Mr. Escobar, what are your expectations for the meeting in Ohrid? Is reaching the agreement in Ohrid more a matter of optimism or realism? Let's maybe play.
Well, I think absolutely it's a matter of realism. So both sides have agreed that the basic agreement, that is the initial 11 points, are acceptable with no caveats, with no edits. And it's really a question of the implementation annex. And so all of the points will appear in the implementation annex. It's just a question of how we frame that to be attainable.
So, Mr. Escobar, as far as I understand, you're very much optimistic. So we do expect results in Ohrid tomorrow?
Well, results we'll have. Now, I want to caution that we may not have a final agreement. We are going to work toward finalizing the annex, but I expect a lot of progress.
Mr. Escobar, why is the deal on the table the best solution at the present? Is it the balance of the desires of both parties, or it is an opposition on both parties by the international community?
Well, look, I'll tell you, anybody who looks at this agreement cannot help but be struck by how far it goes, just how much it opens the door for both countries to integrate closer to the Euro-Atlantic structures, and by default to international structures. So I would not say that this is not an ambitious undertaking. This is quite ambitious. This will bring Serbia and Kosovo closer to each other, closer to the region, and closer to Europe. So it's quite significant in many respects. So this is not the best deal. This is a great deal.
So if it's not the best solution and a great deal, does that mean that Kosovo should have or should do some compromises in a way?
Well, look, I wouldn't call them compromises. Now, the most important thing that I'm hoping that Kosovo will signal is that the government of Kosovo accepts its legal obligation to form an association of Serb majority municipalities. That's important. Now, for Serbia, there are a lot of other requirements, all of which benefit Kosovo. So I want to see a recognition of the obligations, and the annex will provide us a way forward on all of those.
Have you seen this recognition for both parties so far?
Recognition for both parties? Do you mean the mutual recognition?
Yeah. No, I mean about the obligations that they have on the way forward.
I would say that both sides are taking it very seriously.
Good. So are there consequences of rejecting the agreement? If so, what might be some?
Well, rather than talk about the consequences, I want to talk about the advantages of accepting it. So the first thing is that this opens the door for both of them to move faster into European structures. And as a result, we want to look for ways that we could have immediate results. Now, one of the things that I floated with the Europeans, now that Kosovo has visa liberalization, for example, is to open the borders between Europe and the Western Balkans, and not just for Serbia and Kosovo, but for all of the countries of the region. So that using the liberalization, using the agreement signed in Berlin on freedom of movement, that the citizens of this country and of Serbia and of the region could use the European lines to come in and out of the region, to use your own passports to go through the European passport lines in Europe, to be able to do the kind of administrative tasks that you would normally have to do in Europe. You could do them here and have them align with European systems. That's what we're looking at. That's what this opens the door to. Now, in terms of what happens if we don't get an agreement, the Europeans have signaled that this is their preferred path for European integration, and we're fully behind it. It is a well thought out plan. It is a reasonable agreement, and it has the full support of not just the 27 countries of the European Union, but of the United States as well. The full support. So I can't imagine why anyone would turn their backs on such a tremendous opportunity.
Before I push you on this issue, can you tell me, you're talking about 27 countries of the European Union, member states, but there are 5 non-recognized.
That's right.
So how do you get them into this, bearing in mind that there are still some of the countries that are strongly opposing Kosovo's independence?
In the European Union, I would not use the word strongly opposed. I would say cautiously interested in what happens tomorrow. We have been engaging with the countries of the European Union broadly, including the 5 non-recognizers. And I would say that all of Europe understands the importance of tomorrow as well.
Including Spain?
Including Spain.
Good. So, may I be more
now
specific?
I have to clarify, they understand that tomorrow is historic. Now, they have not declared themselves on what they would do if it fails or if it succeeds. But that's a conversation that we want to have together with the government of Kosovo.
Good, but can we be more specific to the issue if something fails tomorrow? What consequences Kosovo and Serbia may have on the way towards European Union and the Euro-Atlantic integration?
Well, look, there's nothing specific, but it was very clear when I made my visit here with my German, French, and Italian counterparts that this is a process that Europe has laid out for the 2 countries. It is a roadmap that Europe has given to them. And they want the confidence that the 2 countries are not turning their back on Europe. And so I don't know about specific legal consequences or economic consequences, but politically the consequences of seeing to ignore the expectations of your most important partners, I think, are quite serious.
Mr. Escobar, can Kosovo count on moving towards the membership to NATO and partnership for peace with this agreement?
I think it's absolutely possible. Now, our position has always been that we are your strongest international supporter. We want you to be a member of the United Nations, a member of NATO, a member of the European Union, and a member of every international organization that you want to be in. This agreement is not that, but it opens the door to all of that.
But this agreement, is it an intermediate agreement, or is it something that we should still see in the next phase?
Well, look, in terms of agreement, what's important is not so much what's written on the paper, but the trajectory of the relationship between Serbia and Kosovo. So, yeah, this will not be the end of creating a sustainable, peaceful, and productive relationship between Kosovo and Serbia. In fact, it's not the end of the development, the political development and reconciliation of the region as a whole. It's an important step that I think people shouldn't miss. But we're going to continue to invest political and economic effort to bring forward the promise of what the Western Balkans is. And I want to remind you that for the American government, the Western Balkans are not a risk, they're an opportunity. The defining characteristic of this region is strong economic opportunity. That is the human and other types of capital that are making you the fastest growing part of Europe. So that's part of what this is about. This is about unlocking that potential, about getting the world to recognize what you really are, which is a vibrant, multi-ethnic society and not a society that can't live with each other, that's prone to violence, and that is still a political basket case. That's not what you are. And this is the biggest signal that you could give right now to the world that you can be productive and peaceful members of the European family.
When I asked you about that, is it intermediate? I just wanted to ask you, but has United States given up from the idea that it should be a mutual recognition between Kosovo and Serbia?
No, not at all. In fact, it is our position that all the countries of the region should recognize each other and have peaceful and productive and solid relations with each other.
Good. So can I go back to the Association of Serb Municipalities? I just want to ask you, can there be an agreement on that? Are you optimistic after visiting Belgrade here and here in Pristina?
Well, I should tell you there already is an agreement on that. Okay. It's an existing agreement from 10 years ago. So our position is that it's an existing legally binding obligation. So, but it should be one that is negotiated between the parties. It should be one that doesn't interfere with Kosovo's constitutional, legal, or functional capacity. And one that is really about delivering municipal services for the people in those municipalities.
Is that something that would lead towards the sort of autonomy for the Serbs in Kosovo? A sort of autonomy?
I would say that it would allow them to join together to find the best mechanism to deliver municipal services. That is, the services that municipalities already provide. So these would be provided, would be an opportunity for those municipalities that join the association to look for ways to coordinate those services to best meet the needs of the people.
Are we in a position that we're talking about the chicken or egg matter or issue? What comes first, association first or association at the end?
The association is already an obligation. So that's an important piece of it. Now, this will bolster the legal underpinnings of the association. But it's important to note that, you know, I don't want to be confrontational when I say there will be an association. But it appears in the Brussels Agreement, it appears in this agreement, it appears in European Council conclusions, it appears in our policy. So, in essence, there's no escaping the need for an association. But I also believe that the people of those municipalities expect it, they want it, they need it, under two conditions. One, that it helps them improve the delivery of municipal services, and two, that the international community participate in its development. So we'll do both of those, and we will make it work. The only thing is, we have to acknowledge that it's an obligation.
Mr. Lajčák was saying that he has 15 or 16
yeah, that's right.
models of it.
Yeah.
But I would ask you, appears that Kurti and Vučić are clashing about the association with executive powers or something that is a NGO. Is there something that would be reconciled with this 15 models or whatever?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, look, I think what Mr. Lajčák is signaling is that there are, within the European Union, there are models of self-management, self-government in ways that minority groups can protect their culture and their language that don't create problems with functionality. So as this agreement goes forward, and as you normalize relations between Serbia and Kosovo, we have to keep in mind that you're also harmonizing your systems with Europe, so that any association will have to be consistent with European values and European systems as well. So in essence, it cannot be anything that violates your constitution or your functionality. So I think within that parameter, there is quite a lot you can do.
I'll quote you, Mr. Escobar.
Quote me.
The association is going to happen. The question is which government of Kosovo is going to implement it. Seems to me that you are not trusting to the Kurti government at this particular moment. Which government is going to implement it?
No, this was in response to a question of people asking me, what if Prime Minister Kurti doesn't accept it? Now, the fact is, it is an obligation entered into not by one man or one party, but by an international body, which is the government of Kosovo. So the question is, who's going to be at the helm when it happens? I certainly expect that it will be this government because we need progress immediately. But the fact is that for us, you are a member of the Euro-Atlantic community. You're not part of the formal structures. But your signature, the signature of your previous leaders, is valid for us and should be valid for us and should be valid for you. So the question is, how do we get there knowing that this is a fact, that there will be an association?
But the previous leaders actually are opposing it. So oppositional parties are opposing a new agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. You have met them yesterday. You have met them during all this period of time. How to move forward with all this opposition that you see on the ground?
Well, look, my message to the opposition was clear. I understand that for political reasons, they have their differences with the Prime Minister. In Serbia and in Kosovo, I'm not asking the opposition to support the leaders as political leaders. I'm asking them to support a vision for their countries of peaceful relations between Serbia and Kosovo. And that was the message that I gave the opposition. I'm not asking support for the Prime Minister. I'm asking support for a vision of Kosovo that I think the majority of people in this country share.
Have you got this promise from them?
I'd rather not go into discussions, diplomatic discussions with key members of the political establishment, but I can say that I've heard them and they have heard me.
Great. So is the agreement a matter of approval of the parliaments in Pristina and Belgrade too?
Well, that'll depend on the constitutional requirements after we get to finalization. But our position is that once we get to an agreement, it should be implemented. So there will be legally binding responsibilities on both sides.
Good. And let me ask you, Mr. Escobar, about the accommodation with the Serb Orthodox Church according to the agreement offered, what are the potential problems, considering also the example of Montenegro?
Well, I think that the Serbian Orthodox Church should enjoy all and any protections that are offered to churches in Europe. And that should happen.
That should happen, some sort of more autonomy for the Serb Church, Orthodox Church in Kosovo?
Well, look, I don't want to get into that because it's still the subject of discussions. But I think the protection of churches and religious freedom in Europe is an important tenet of our values. And I am confident that that will be reflected in the agreement. But I'm also confident that it's reflected in the values of the people of Kosovo.
Shall we say tomorrow cheers to this, what is going to happen?
I hope we can.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you.